46C. Before I start 46C, let me remind you of an easier problem. The derivative of e to the 5x. Derivative of e to the 5x would be e to the 5x times the derivative of 5x, which is 5. And that's because the rule for e, the derivative of e to the u, is e to the u times the derivative of u, e to the u du. So it's always times the derivative of that exponent right there. Now let's say instead of 5x we had a 5x squared. Maybe derivative of e to the, make it 3x squared. Okay, the derivative of this would be e to the 3x squared times the derivative of 3x squared, which is 6x. So sometimes there's an x, it just depends on what the derivative of this is. Okay, so back to the problem that we have. We're trying to get the second derivative at 1. So first derivative, it's e to the 1/2 x squared times the derivative of 1/2 x squared, which is a power rule. And so that's 2 times 1/2, which is 1, x to the first. So the first derivative is x times e to the 1/2 x squared. All right, now we have to do the second derivative. Well, the second derivative is going to require a product rule. So I have an x and an e to the 1/2 x squared. Derivative of x is 1. The derivative of e to the 1/2 x squared, we just figured that out. That's what this was. That was the original question. So the derivative of this guy is our last answer. You can figure it out again if you want to, or you can just figure out that you already figured it out. All right, now crisscross to do my product rule. And the second derivative, or the derivative of this, will be x squared e to the 1/2 x squared plus e to the 1/2 x squared. Now, if this was going to be my final answer, I would probably factor out an e to the 1/2 x squared. But all I'm going to be doing is plugging in a 1. So I happen to think it's easier to just plug in the 1 right now. So second derivative evaluated at 1. Plugging in a 1 for all the x's. We're going to get a 1 here. This is e to the 1/2 plus e to the 1/2. And just like if you had x plus x, that's just 2x. You don't do anything to those exponents, so this is 2 e to the 1/2. And if that's not an option, remember 1/2 power is the same as square root, so that's the same as 2 times the square root of e.